Well, howdy, folks. Back for more animation. What I'm going to do, starting today, is something that I'm guessing you don't normally see in an art tutorial on YouTube. I have seen a great many art tutorials where someone will do an entire project, but they will do it at, they'll do a time lapse version of it, so that if something takes 5, 6 hours, they'll do the entire thing. And if you're watching it and you wanted to follow them, you would literally have to, you know, slow it down and see what they're doing. And my guess is that I guess that obviously works to some greater or lesser degree. I don't know how well, but as a teacher, I haven't. My technique is not to do that. My technique is to go in a very slow step-by-step method so that my students can get what they're actually hearing me talk about. So that's what's going to happen here. This is actually the first time I think I've ever done this way online, and it will be ongoing like a lot of the things that you've seen me do in the past, and so you'll see it develop over time. Now, what you all saw recently was I did a little animation of the title for this film, which is based on a book that I created. And let's see here. I guess I can pull up. Well, okay, I did. Well, you've seen it in the previous the previous video that I did last week was the title of this thing, which is called "But You Are My Friends." What you're seeing on the screen right now is the actual artwork for the book. This was a book that I illustrated for the church I was working at, church I am going to. And so this is the story. And this is the way the story plays. These are the illustrations for the story. These are the characters in the story. And some of these, the way that they're in the book, some will be a full page spread where you'll see across the page. And some of them are individual images on one side or the other of a page. And so and you can kind of see that, like this one here. You can tell that obviously this would be the left side of the page, and that would be the right side of the page. Same thing with this, the left side of the page, the right side of the page. And then you have your type. Okay, so anyways, it was a short little book. Not that many pages. I think it's maybe 15 pages, I forget. Anyways, it's a little story. All right. Now, normally if I'm doing a storyboard, or doing an animated film, I would do a storyboard to plan out, which is the way that you do a film, generally speaking. That's what you do. However, when you're doing something independently, if you're doing it yourself, and you're the animator, and you're the storyteller, and all of that, sometimes you can choose to bypass certain steps, because the reason why these steps exist is because usually in the production of an animated project, you have other people involved. And so when that's the case, you create the storyboard and the script and all those things so that you can communicate to the other people who are working on your film what you want. I'm choosing, actually, at least at this point anyway, to not actually do it in the conventional way. And I'm doing that because I wanted to show you that you can have you can approach making a film in other ways. You're not. It's not to say that you shouldn't do the techniques, because this is what I do come from, that understanding of the design, the boards, the design, the board. So there is an order, and the order is good, and it is generally that would be what you would do. But I thought I'd come at this a little differently because what I want to do is encourage what individuals can bring to a film or to a story. Sometimes might be a bit unorthodox, but on the other hand, it might also have a certain kind of energy that you might miss in a larger setting where you have more people. Um, the old saying that sometimes too many cooks spoil the cake or whatever. I'm not going to say that that's necessarily always the case because a lot of really fine films have been made with, most films have been made with large groups of people because that's just the way you usually do it. However, there have been some really interesting films that have been made by individuals or small groups of people. So once again, it comes back to, how well do you have the idea process in your mind? That really is what it comes down to. So I thought what I would do here is take tonight to kind of go over my story, and I don't actually think I'm going to end up doing much drawing here, but what I'm going to do is talk about my process or what I'm thinking about doing. So the first thing that I would say is now, the first thing that it impresses me about my story in terms of how I might want to approach it is I'm thinking that the first thing what I may do here is I may let the film be motivated by dialogue. So for instance, I can read out the story or narrate the story with this dialogue. I might add to it. And then that dialogue then can actually drive the story. So what I might do first is I might say record the entire story in a kind of pacing that feels natural and make a recording of myself or whoever I'm going to get to do that narration, and then build the visuals around that narration because you're always looking for some type of a thread to carry your story in a direction. And sound can be very helpful that way. Whether you're using narration or whether you're using music, think of Fantasia. Fantasia, the entire production is all centered around music. So all of the action and animation is really timed to the music. So the music is actually influencing the story and where the images go and everything that happens. So dialogue can do the same thing. So if you've got a story that somebody is telling the story and reading the lines, how they read them will have an effect on how it's illustrated. For instance, here I can say this line. I could say, Jason, Miguel, Lenny, and Nora had been friends all their entire lives. They'd known each other as far back as preschool. Now you see the way I said that, it would influence how the images might play behind it. But there's other ways I could say it, and I could get other people to say it. I could get a woman to say this instead of myself. And then that would give it an entirely different flavor. So what I'm thinking of doing here is I'm thinking of doing that sort of thing. That's the way I'm thinking of going at it. Now, I've already got the character design, so I've already got who these characters are. So, we're good there. This is Nora, this is Lenny, Jason, and that's Miguel. Okay, so I already have the characters, and I can see what it is I want them to do. Now I can start thinking in terms of like what would I do with them. So like for instance this opening bit here, I would probably, the first thing that occurs to me is introducing them or showing them. But since I've already done a little short animated title, in a sense I've already kind of shown the audience these characters even though they didn't know what their names were. So now I'm sort of doing it again. If I'm going to follow the type in my story, I might say, okay, Jason, Miguel, Lenny, and Nora had been friends. I might say each name very clearly and slowly so that I could show each one of them pop up on the screen. Or I could decide how I want them to be presented. They known each other as far back as preschool. I'm not sure what I would do with this paragraph, but that would be a place where I could have some kind of action. The next stanza, they did a lot together, played, ate lunch, even did their homework together. They thought they were a family. All right, so, and then in the next picture I show them playing. Now here, the way this works is I might be able to show a series of things, literally showing them playing, eating lunch, doing things together while this is being said. So that's another way to come at this whole process of illustrating these words. When you're doing a film, you know, you have there's a couple of things you can kind of keep in mind when you're doing a film, okay? How you're going to present something. But see, you have to also kind of think about what is it in your imagination that you're seeing as the story is progressing. So realistically, there isn't any right or wrong way to do it. There's so many different ways. Now, I have a lot of knowledge about film. I've worked as a director for a lot of years. I've done storyboards for a long time. I've done my own films. I've seen a lot of filmmakers. And there's a lot of ways and techniques and things that you can do when you're making your own film. So all of those are kind of interesting ways of approaching. You're not limited. The beauty of filmmaking is you're not limited to how you present something. However, what you do want to do when you're telling the story is you're trying to reveal the things you want the audience to see in a certain order that makes sense. You're trying to portray your story, or you're trying to tell your story visually, and how you choose to do that is a wide way of doing a variety of ways of doing it. For instance, gives another thought. I could tell this entire story without any dialogue at all. For instance, I could tell this whole story purely with pantomime, with no dialogue, maybe just put some background music behind it, and that might be enough, you know. Now, there's another way I can go. Like, for instance, I mentioned that I could do the dialogue first and use that as a basis to map the story out. But here's another thought. I could do it pantomime-wise, forgetting or whatever, completely forgetting about, just putting images, in an order that I think plays. Maybe having some music behind it, or maybe not thinking about that, letting that be at the end. And then after I've visually told a story without any audible help, then go back after all the animation is worked out and add a soundtrack behind it, which might tell the story with dialogue, so that I'm matching the dialogue, for instance, to the picture instead of the other way around. So you can do that too, which is, I'd say, probably a little easier to do. But either way has its advantages. If you do something ahead of time, if you're doing dialogue and you want something to work to your dialogue or to a sound effect or whatever, well, maybe not a sound effect, but music or something like that, then generally you're going to have to record those things ahead of time, and then you're going to have your animation synchronize to that sound. That would be then the reason why you would be using the sound, the audio, as a means, to help you tell the story. So you see what I'm saying there. So decide ahead of time, how you want to approach. Right now, you are literally seeing me talk about this without actually having storyboarded anything. I have my story, as I just showed you here, but I don't have a storyboard. Now, that's not to say that I won't, between now and tomorrow, whatever, do a rough storyboard. I might do that. I'm not really sure what I'm going to do, I'll be honest with you. I don't know. I haven't really decided yet. So you're going to get to go with me on this little excursion. And I'll keep these videos short so that they don't wear you out with me just yammering the whole time. But I sort of want you to think, and when you're making your own films, um, an approach that I'm taking will hopefully open up your mind as to how you might make your own film and what you might do, because there's so many different ways of doing it, and whatever works. The storyboard, of course, is easier because with the storyboard, you're thinking visually, um, and mapping it out, and then you're just animating your scenes based on the storyboard, which is fine, completely fine, and obviously an efficient way of working. But once again, remember the reason why these methods um, uh, uh, have been used is because they were primarily used for the sake of efficiency in production. Animated productions are done with multitudes of people in large studios for very large amounts of money. It's the same difference as making a feature live action movie. You've got the writers and the directors and the actors and the grips and the cameramen and all that, you know. But you've seen films made by small groups or sometimes even individuals. You might take your iPhone out and make a film. That's the beauty of even more so today than ever, is that because all of these tools are available to everyone, you can make your own stuff. You're making YouTube videos. Those of you who watch YouTube, some of you are making your own videos. You make them all the time with your phone. You've got digital cameras. There's all sorts of things available now. So in essence, really anybody can be a filmmaker. And when you look at YouTube, what are you looking at? You're looking at people that are making their own product, and that's exciting. And so, and I'm sure you're all, of course, there are things that tell you how to do that. And mostly people are doing what they're doing because they want to monetize what they're doing. That's all fine. But at the same time, I think a lot of times you are learning techniques, ways of filming, ways of putting product together, all of that. Um, this is real raw. I'm not glitzing this video. It's really pretty down and dirty, to be honest. But I'm doing that for a reason. I think my videos will probably get better as I do this longer. I really only had this channel for a while, so I'm really still, even though I have film experience, I'm not coming at it this maybe in the most professional way I could, but I am trying to do it in a fairly organized and somewhat professional way. So, but it's done. I'm doing this because I know that when you start out to make a film, everything is raw. You don't really know. There's things you don't know yet. You have to discover. You'll learn stuff and you figure things out. So, all right. So anyway, I'm going to stop here. We're at 18 minutes right now, so I think that I don't want to go too long. And I'll see you tomorrow. So we're moving forward on this. This is really going to be kind of fun, I think. I hope. As I always say, if you have any questions about stuff about what I'm doing or what feel free to leave it in the comments. For those few of you who are watching me, thank you for watching. I hope this is helpful to someone. Okay. All right. You all have a beautiful day, beautiful evening. What's left of it. I'll see you tomorrow. And don't forget, as I always say, Jesus is Lord.